Welcome to Google Weekly.
Welcome, my name is Bjorn Berendt, and this is the Google Weekly Podcast, which is part of the AskBG.net network of EdTech services. Never stop learning. This is episode 24, A Student's Perspective, Part 1, recorded April 5th, 2012. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Google Weekly Podcast, and I am actually really excited about this episode because I have a student with me, and this is Jake Kinsman, and he is from Burlington, Massachusetts. And I went to the the New England One-to-One Summit? A few weeks back. And as a presenter, I love presenting, but I can never actually go to the sessions. I always get bored and walk out and go to a different one or hang out in between. And I was doing that, and I got to hang out with all the student helpers that were working out there, and Jake was one of them. And I told him I had my podcast, and actually, I think you just started talking about Google, going right into it because you're just an enthusiastic.
To be perfectly honest with you, BJ, that does sound like something I would do.
And so I invited you onto the podcast, and this is our second one. We tried the first one, and the audio just didn't pull through like it was supposed to.
No, unfortunately, but I believe we have it this time. I do.
Yes, I can hear you a whole lot better. So this is great. Okay, well, moving on. Anything pre-showish for me? Not so much. I can still encourage people to go to the Linowit page and use the sticky notes. That was something else I got from the one-to-one conference, was to add those up there. And we've had a few up there, but there's room for more. And Jake is going to be he's going to be my co-host also this week, or for this show. So he's going to be with me throughout the whole What's New in Google, and then we'll talk about some other things that he's done and seen in his school. So let's do the What's New in Google first. And Jake, we didn't actually put our names on these yet. Did you see anything that you wanted to talk about on that list?
In terms of the What's New in Google, I would actually like to talk about account activity. That's something I first noticed with my Gmail probably about a week ago now. It's just, for me, once again, for those of you that haven't actually looked at this yet, it's in the account section under products, and it's a dashboard. It shows all of your user information, how you integrate Google Apps, the apps you use most frequently, and really just how the product works for you. And I actually found that very interesting at least for me, it was kind of enlightening to realize exactly how much I do integrate Google Apps in my day-to-day experiences. Other than that, we have Latitude. I've had Latitude on my phone for a while. Latitude is incredible, and its integration with Google Maps gives some really, really cool images, especially, if you're ever looking at Boston, New York, Syracuse, some of your larger cities. I think Latitude is definitely going to be the future of GPS and navigation. So very excited about that as well.
My wife loves Latitude, just because she wants.
It's the best.
She's always wondering where I am because we always have to coordinate picking up our kids. And Latitude has the friend feature where you can tell where all your friends are, and it can be shut off, and it doesn't turn on by default. So don't think if you're walking around with an Android phone, you have Latitude on. By default, it's off, and you have to friend it. So we went through a whole process of getting it set up. And so she loves it. Well, the account activity, what it does is it actually shows you how many times you've logged in, how many emails you have sent, and if you have Latitude turned on and it collecting data, it'll even tell you where things have been happening and where your phone has been. I do have mine turned on, but I didn't see any Latitude data. I don't know why. The other thing that you can get around this account activity, and that's by going to accounts. So you hit the little sprocket, or actually you hit your name, your email address up in the black bar, and you click accounts. And then you will see something called account activity, or accounts, and then you go to products, and then you'll see three things. You'll see the dashboard, the account activity and something called data liberation on the right-hand side. The dashboard shows you every Google Apps product and every bit of information that Google has on you.
And more.
And more. Yeah, so that's a really great way to find out what information Google has on you. Because, I mean, that's been a policy scare of a lot of people is, oh, my goodness, how much do they have? That's where you can look. Everything that Google has, it's there. Then you had in the account activity where it can tell you where you've been. And they put this thing out there for your own safety. So if all of a sudden you look at that and you see that you've logged in, if you're not from Uganda and you log in and you see something from Uganda or from wherever, that is a red flag that someone has hacked your account. And the last thing they have right there is the data liberation. And this is where if you're going to leave Google, they have to give you a way of taking all your data with you. And that's what the data liberation will do, is it allows you to completely export. I don't know if it works for importing, so I think it's just a let it go type of a thing.
Just one thing to add to data liberation. Google actually had already implemented some import tools. I think the export tools are more for enterprises and for individuals going to other services. But I know the import tools are there. I was able to import all of my email contacts from, I was using Thunderbird to when I had just started using Gmail through a regular CSV, just as I was switching email clients, if you will.
Yeah, I know they had the email. I didn't know if they had it through the data liberation button there, where you can export all your Google stuff and then maybe import it again somewhere else.
I don't know if they help you too much on the import end. I personally haven't got to spend as much time with it as I'd like, but just at least for me personally, the one thing I've really liked about Google is that they're so supportive of their end user. You know what I mean? Their goal is not to keep you in their walled garden. Their goal is to kind of help you do the best work that you possibly can. And I know last week we were going to cover links in file hosting on Google sites. I know, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to publish that. But I feel like data liberation and dashboard is just another example of Google kind of going out there and really just saying, hey, if you use our services, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. We're always going to be free and we're kind of going to help you. And I love that company model. Well, I feel like Dashboard really does that. Actually,
I have a question around that then. Being a student and you are a senior, so you're going to be leaving. You're going to be leaving your school, and I'm assuming your school has a Google Apps account.
Yes, they do.
Have you thought about your own exit strategy and being able to bring all the work that you have done or any work that you want to bring that's associated with your school account as you go on to college? And
I actually have, as a matter of fact. I have two Gmail accounts, two Google Apps accounts. One is my personal, the other being my student. The only things that I really do in particular through my student would be Google Calendar, which I use to keep all of my school tasks in order. Those in particular I'm not really too concerned about losing. The documents and the document creation that I do have in Google Docs through my student account, however, I think is priceless. What I'll probably do, Google supports, especially if you use Google Chrome, it's real easy, just batch downloads. So what I'll more than likely do, batch download them. I have a 16 gigabyte flash drive that I take with me everywhere, and I try to use that for things I want to make absolutely certain I won't lose, if you kind of follow what I'm saying. So I keep a lot of personal information on there, as well as my most important documents that may help me in the future. Worst comes to worst, I can always, from there, import them into Google Docs native format in my regular Gmail account.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's really good, and maybe we'll we'll catch up with you again after you're in college and see how well that worked.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Okay, moving on to the next thing, and this isn't new, but it seems to be, I heard about it on one of the Google Plus things, and someone else, again, posted it on one of the listservs I'm part of, and that is the Google Art Project. And this looks like they're scanning in high-end scans for artwork and posting them, and there's like a museum view. It's kind of like the walkthrough. Really interesting. I'm sitting here, I'm at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Oh, so it's basically, it's the internal Google Maps. like the street view for inside stuff. So they're doing it through the museums there. This is cool. I should have looked at this
It
a little bit.
is. I mean, I'm looking at it a little bit right now. Unfortunately, like I said, I didn't get as much time as I'd have liked to look over some of the material, but it's really, really cool. I can almost see a future of Google branded blueprints, kind of based off of the latitude concept.
Yeah, well, this is it looks like a little fun thing. So I think it actually maybe moved out of beta, and that's why I got the. Yeah, I don't even know. I know it got a little bit of press, and it fell back into my circle. So it's going into the what's new in Google. Worth checking out. Really great for. I know you can visit different museums using through this, and yeah, I can see a lot of use for schools. Moving on. The next thing here is, and this looks like a lot of fun. And I don't know, do you want to announce it? The 3D?
Uh, I mean, it really speaks for itself. Google's in the process of making 3D video available to YouTube. I mean, and that really has a whole myriad of really, really cool effects. Obviously, I mean, it will require a 1080p monitor, and I would imagine some 3D glasses, at least for the near future. But I once again, I think it just shows innovation. Um, One thing in particular that I think is really, really cool. I know a few months back, Google was talking about trying to make YouTube a premium television channel in its own respect, and I think making 3D video available to everyone. It's in beta testing right now, I believe, but making it available to everyone, I feel would really, really help further that. I could definitely imagine a future of exclusive 3D mini TV series, if you will, exclusive to YouTube.
Well, we'll see when that comes. That would be nice. No, but the 3D technology, I was watching the video they have up on here as an example, and it basically will take any video and make it 3D. So they're talking about this huge algorithm they have to tell how far things should be, and the requirements is that you upload the video in high definition. So any video you take and you upload it as a HD video, as you're playing it, and if I hit play here, it's probably going to come through your speakers. If I hit play in HD, there's a little button down the bottom that says click for 3D, and as soon as you click for 3D, it comes up with that red and blue blurriness that if you have the old style 3D glasses, I'm sure it would come out as a three-dimensional image. And I'm like, okay, I got to find my daughter's, I got to buy a toy for my daughter that has 3D on it, just so I can have the glasses.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, what's so cool is that this really is, oh my goodness. What's so cool about this to me is that it really is just rendering. I mean, kind of on the spot taking this video file and on the fly just creating something else. I mean, I think that's looks incredible.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I need to buy my daughter. My daughter's going to get a new 3D toy sometime soon.
I might get a new 3D toy sometime soon.
Oh, I don't need that many excuses. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about with what's new in Google is a Google Apps for Schools webinar series. And I will definitely post the link in the show notes. And this looks like a really cool thing where they're getting people talking about their Chromebook installations. Sign up for webinars with schools using Google Apps. I probably, if I probably pull my strings enough, and I could get my information up there too, but I don't have as big of I don't have a Chromebook rollout, but I got a big Google rollout at their schools. But there was quite a few different, looks like there's 1, 2, 3 webinars coming up on April 23rd, 24th, and 25th, and a little form you can fill out. So if you're interested in implementing this and you want to talk to another school that has deployed these, go ahead, click on the link, sign up for the webinar. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
At least to me personally, it looks like there's going to be a whole lot of information available.
Okay, and on to the interview. And I think this is great. So I found out about Jake at this conference with one-to-one, and the school you're doing did this great thing. They rolled out one-to-one, and they did it with iPads. And
That they did.
And the last thing I expected at this conference at this school that rolled out iPads was to find a Google enthusiast in the middle of it. Especially someone who is actually, because you're part of the help desk there that does a lot of the rollout. So you have a lot of involvement in this too.
I certainly do. It's been a great experience.
So do you want to talk to me about your role at the school and the environment as a student? I think this is great. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to kind of break that into two pieces, if you don't mind. First, my role there. It's definitely been one that's changed over time. Before the one-to-one initiative was actually rolled out, I had little to no responsibility within the school, really little to no role at all in rolling out the devices. It wasn't really until after they had been rolled out that I had kind of rediscovered my passion for technology. As the year went on, the issues grew, changed, evolved, and I had the opportunity to kind of stand there every step of the way and always be on the cutting edge. Sit down, talk with both students and teachers about what was going on, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and really just kind of get a holistic, unibody approach to understanding how this device works in education. And I have to tell you, the iPad in and of itself, I don't unfortunately believe was the most efficient choice for a device. That being said, implementing technology absolutely is. And as for the environment there, to kind of tackle the second part of your question, if I were to try to describe it in one word, it would probably be immersive. Every teacher, based on various factors, their age, their technological literacy, uses the device in different ways. This could be anything from conducting research, reading news articles, especially for business classes, that's a big one, writing papers, online resources. I know in calculus, Khan Academy has been a lifesaver. And I think the biggest thing that really, really sets it apart for me is that it makes it more dynamic, I believe. It makes things less monotonous. It's not just doing worksheets. It's not just reading from a textbook anymore. Education is becoming diverse. And for me, it makes it more interesting, and I feel like I'm actually remembering more of what I learn.
That's a big concept when you're saying you actually are remembering more than what you learned. I know in my master's degree, that's huge. They want you to retain the information.
Absolutely. And one of my math teachers last year, when we had just found out that we were initiating the program, was telling us that within the educational spectrum, there are different levels of student engagement, ranging from anything to something more passive to something really as far deep in as, full understanding and integration. And I feel as though implementing all of these new tools that we have at our disposal is a great way to get to where they want education to be, where I want it to be.
So is there a lot of teacher buy-in with this? They have to be, but are they really running with this? Or are they fighting it?
Well, your answer is going to depend on who you ask. There are certain teachers, specifically the seniority and choice few teachers here and there, that really aren't for the device that much. They don't integrate it very effectively. But that being said, the administrative body as a whole, I think personally has been absolutely fantastic about adopting the device. A lot of teachers, yes, they did get the opportunity to use it throughout the summer, but a lot of teachers have just been very enthusiastic about it. They're not afraid to say they don't know. They're not afraid to say, we can try this out. They've been very humble about it, and I think the number one thing that that BHS administration has done to make this successful is that they've been humble, they've been patient, and they've been understanding. They do understand that this is an area in which my generation does have a great advantage. And, I more so than ever, I feel as though I see students and teachers working together the way they should.
That's amazing. Now, I also want to throw the other perspective that I don't see, because I see the students' faces, but I actually don't see what their opinions are. How are the students reacting to this, and how are they using it?
Uh, Once again, very good question. Um, what's really, really nice about this is how the device is used in class really, really boils down to the student. Yes, especially as a senior, there are students that sit down in class and discreetly play Angry Bird Space, that discreetly check Twitter, check Facebook, etc. It's real. It does happen. It'll happen in any deployment, I can almost guarantee you. That being said, students like myself, like other honor students within the school, that do have a good work ethic, that are disciplined, are using it, in my opinion, in a way that's greatly enhancing their learning experience. And what's great is there's just so many tools available. Personally, as I'm sure we'll get to at some point, I use my Android tablet in school. Personally, I do most of my content creation in Google Docs. It's the tool that works for me. But a lot of the other students that are very passionate about their studies are finding the tools that work for them and finding a way to use it to enhance their experience. And those students, I find, are using it incredibly effectively.
Okay, I got to. What is one tip that you would give a teacher that did a rollout of one-to-one to help keep the kids, I'm going to say, engaged and focused?
Okay, that's once again very good question. Personally, I think the way to do it is really lots and lots of assessment. Um, Whether it's small learning quizzes. I know personally I'm a good test taker. Small, basic understanding tests and quizzes are a great way to make sure that day in and day out, your students know that there's a test coming and that they do need to pay attention. So I definitely think small quizzes are a great way to do that. Um, Other things that I think would be really, really effective in that sense, lecturing, actually. I know in a more traditional classroom, teachers lecture, students fall asleep. It doesn't really work like that because I find a lot of the time it's we're started. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. We're kind of implementing the backwards classroom strategy where some of the learning is done at home and some of the reinforcement is actually done in class. And I think that works really, really well as well because the students that do pay attention in class are the students that are really going to understand those concepts and the students that are going to excel. I think what it's really all about is reinforcement and, once again, constant assessment. Because especially, like I said, being a senior, you will get the students that won't pay attention.
Okay, so making sure that the students pay attention is one of the big things. How about like project-based learning, where you actually keep them engaged with projects, or is that where they kind of lose it?
It's funny you asked that. That's actually was going to be my next point. Project-based learning for me has always been fantastic. It does work very well with the iPads. The iPads and its integration with either Google Docs or any of the other online tools that students are using has been really, really fantastic in the sense that it allows students to work when they're able to work. If you're dealing in the younger portion of the K to 12 setting, student schedules may be a little bit more normalized. Especially as you get into high school and specifically the latter years. I mean, personally, I work full time. Most of my work gets done between 11 o'clock at night and 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So as such, I need to have the tools ready to do work when I'm available to do work. And that has really made project-based learning completely evolve. It's not meeting in the library after school anymore. It's constant collaboration, really anywhere you go. And I think that's been another really, really good way to reinforce curricula.
Yeah, I know for me, why I personally, and I'm not a student, but why I personally liked Google Docs is because I'm never actually on the same computer at the same all the time. I am at my work computer. I am on, I am on my home computer. We have a couple at home. I have a Chromebook at home. Sometimes my wife's using the computer, so I need to jump onto another one. And if I was tied to that one computer that has all my data on it or the flash drive, I would be in a lot of trouble. But from
Myself as well.
Yeah. And from a student perspective, and I thought of it as you said, I'm up to 2 a.m. in the morning, and when you do the projects is no longer just getting together in the library. I did one assignment kind of showing off some of the features of Google Docs, and each student had to write, and I did this in class, and I said each student has to go around the room and write a sentence. And two things came out of that. I've done it twice, and two things have always come out of it. One, there's always someone who's sick that knows the assignment is coming, and they'll jump on, and from home, they'll add their sentence. Like we'll just talking, they'll wait for a point where they think they could add something, and they just start typing. Freaks the entire class out because they know who it is because they'll see the name on there, but they're not sitting in the room. The next thing that spins off from that is a bunch of the kids got it together and said they want to do a 1 a.m. version. So they literally did this. I mean, last year, several of the students got together at 1 a.m. in the morning and created this online story, one sentence at a time.
Oh my goodness.
So this whole idea of project-based thing is you almost eliminate the where, and you just got to pick the when. And even with Google Docs, you don't even always have to pick the when. You can just say, here, contribute to this, and when you get to it, I'll contribute to it.
Precisely. And like I said, I mean, especially with the busy lives that some students lead, it's really it's the only way to work. In retrospect, I don't know how I didn't have these tools for years prior, because it has made my life so much easier and allowed me really to do more than I ever thought I would be physically capable of doing.
I think it's amazing. Now, we've hinted to this and we said what you've done. How do you personally use Google Docs?
Once again, great question. Google Docs, Google Apps, especially after looking at the dashboard recently, kind of frightening exactly how much I integrate them. But they're definitely a suite of tools I couldn't live without. Personally, first off, I have to tip my hat to Google Calendar. Google Calendar is an incredible tool, and as an owner of an Android tablet, I'm allowed to create a couple of widgets on one of my home screens, which is basically, for those of you who aren't too familiar with the Android platform, widgets are just an embeddable application content. So a small graph, chart, animation, what have you. But I have two Google Calendar widgets set up on my home screen. The one on the left-hand side is my personal Gmail account, and that has all of my work schedule, my professional obligations, things that I would like to do, things that I'm responsible for, community obligations, what have you. And the one on my right, the student Google Calendar widget, is a great place to store all of my assignments, especially assignments that go on for days, weeks, months at a time. On that side, I'm able to keep all of my school information, and with constant emails and the vibrations in my pocket and the fact that it instantly syncs to my computer, my tablet, my phone, I can't get away from my to-do list, and it's allowed me to be almost scary productive. It's definitely been fantastic. As for Google Docs, I would say realistically that I use Google Docs for probably about 99.9% of my content creation. Even perfect example, the show notes that BJ and I created, it was a great way for two very, very busy people to get together, collaborate, and ultimately, bring the show to the audience. And that's really what Google Docs is a great way, whether it's just for me or whether it's for the entire world to see, for productivity to just happen. I'm going to
jump in here and make the point. When I gave this to him, it's like almost an empty document with just some information, and I told him to fill it in. I think, Jake, you wrote a book, and
I did.
We actually had to split it off. I split it off, and this is called part one because he wrote so much in here, and we're going to have, I think we're 3 different parts.
Oh, I greatly look forward to it. I really do.
Same here. So collaborative assignments, the calendar.
Yes, and other than that, one thing that I see a lot of my teachers doing that I actually did help implement myself, um, it would have to be Blogger and FeedBurner, two free Google tools included in Google Apps, and I'll try to kind of give everyone a brief overview without completely spoiling the website episode. But Blogger and FeedBurner is a great way for teachers to configure a free, easy to manage RSS feed, and then use FeedBurner's email subscription tools to automatically send that out to students, parents, etc., as a nice, clean, easy to read email. And that's been a really, really good way to keep me informed. I know on multiple occasions that email, even 3 o'clock the day before an assignment's due, has absolutely saved my life. So that's another tool that I would definitely greatly advocate for. I think it's a great way to just keep everybody informed and really let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I actually am going to try and have a full show about because I use RSS, and that's the whole point behind a podcast is to be able to people subscribe or watch it. And RSS is one of those tools that sounds really technical, but is incredibly useful if you actually learn to use it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really not even very difficult to use if I do say so myself.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep on going here and looking through. How's it going? And now we're jumping around in our show notes here. So if you want to pick up anywhere, the administrators is the next thing I was looking at here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We really haven't been going too much by the show notes, but yes, I do have a lot of advice for administrators that are looking to implement a one-to-one initiative. Number one, first and foremost, trainings. Lots and lots and lots of trainings. That goes for teachers, students, administrators, what have you. Having everyone involved in the initiative very well trained and knowledgeable on how to use whatever device you choose to employ, I think is just going to make the entire adoption and rollout a much smoother process. And once again, I know I hinted to it previously, I think one factor that is absolutely essential for a one-to-one environment to be successful, specifically the teachers and the administrators, need to be able to drop their pride. I don't say that trying to be mean, but they need to understand that this is new ground for everybody. In your more traditional classroom, virtually everything that went on, the teacher was the expert and the student was the apprentice. This is, in some choice circumstances, no longer the case. And I find that the classes that most successfully integrate technology are the ones where the teachers are willing to say, let's give this a shot. Let's try this together. Let's make this happen. And yes, technology integration has been a great way to do that, but it definitely would not be an avenue that would be able to even be traveled down without the teachers being able to say, yes, I cannot do this on my own.
And for me, there's a distinction that needs to happen with teachers like this. Knowing how to use the technology and knowing the concept, what you're trying to teach, are two different things. So
absolutely.
An English teacher may not know how to use Google Docs and may not understand blogging all that much and still may fumble through getting in there. But what they do know is good writing and how
Absolutely.
to write well. And that's what you have to be able to be humble about fumbling through the technology, but still teach the students the concept of good writing and how that works together. So,
absolutely. And if anything, kind of playing off of your English idea, learning to write and to produce in multiple environments like that, be that pen and paper, quill and parchment, Google Docs, what have you, really with any subject area, I feel makes the student become more comfortable with what they're learning in class. I'm sorry, I don't mean to completely derail the show, but one thing I did really, absolutely, one thing I did really, really want to talk about, The only thing that I feel as though Burlington didn't do as well as they could have was with the teacher training. Well, yes, I mean, teachers did have training sessions and they had the opportunity to take the device home over the summer. Even still, um, before we deployed our iPads, for a building of 1,400 people, our IT department was 7 people. After deploying 1,400 iPads, our IT department was 7 people. I know we may not have all math majors with us, but there's something wrong with these numbers, and unfortunately, teachers weren't always able to get the one-on-one help that they needed.
Mm.
And as such, it did prove to be detrimental because even if you do start to learn how to implement the technology and implement the device, sometimes the teachers have been struggling with is implementing it with the subject matter, which I feel is a different battle altogether. Um, that being said, though, we're now in early April, so we've had this deployment for about 8 months now. No doubt in my mind, our teachers, students, administrators getting much better with the initiative and really, really sitting down and trying to learn how to make this work. Because for those of us that have, it really just transforms the learning process. And that's definitely my biggest advice for IT administrators out there.
Well, I have two things as an IT administrator. First of all, for professional development, I think there are three things that really need to happen, and a teacher threw in a fourth one. First of all, teachers need to be exposed. So they need to know what's out there, what the absolute possibilities are. Second is they need time to play. They literally need time to take the things that they've been exposed to and play with them and see which ones work best for them, see which ones could be work with their students, and then they need time to implement. And I'm going to plug the Ed Listen Network and my new podcast called Teaching Change, which I'm trying to get going. It doesn't have any podcasts yet. And I'm trying to do that through podcasts. I'm trying to take that whole exposure piece and turn it into a podcast that teachers can listen to, and then turn the in-services and the training to actual work time that they can play and that they can integrate.
Wow, I'm definitely very, very excited for that, and I'm so sorry. You had mentioned something, and I just kind of wanted to play off this really, really quickly.
Go for it.
You were talking a little bit. Oh my goodness, I just lost my train of thought. So sometimes between talking and looking at the show notes and constantly referring between the two, you do tend to lose your train of thought doing this, but.
Well, I'm used to
I
doing a
completely
one-person show, so having two people on here just chit-chatting is also derailing me too.
Yes, the distractions, the distractions.
Well, I'm going to go back into the professional development. The other, we needed the exposure time and time. The teacher said there also needs to be reflection. I actually don't like the reflection idea. I like reflection, but there's no action step to do this, so I want modification. So each year I want to see teachers looking to upgrade and update and modify their lessons. And if you're not modifying, you're not doing enough. So each year stuff has to change. It can't be the same stuff. Even history has to be different in the way you present it and look at it. And if you don't constantly change these things, it's not getting better.
Definitely agreed. And that actually is kind of interesting in the sense that it did play into one of the other things that I wanted to let administrators know about. There are sacrifices involved in a one-to-one initiative. One of the things that Burlington's done, as we're not purchasing any more textbooks, all the curriculum material is now being done in-house on a year-to-year basis. They actually first rolled that out with the English department when I believe the summer going into my junior year. And that was one of the things I noticed. When I walked into my English class as a junior, the curriculum was done in-house. And I have to be honest with you, it was fantastic. I felt as though everything was much more applicable. There was a lot less fluff in the curriculum, and there was a lot more material that I felt was genuinely useful, even in a subject I'm not particularly fond of. No offense to the English majors out there. But yeah, I mean, just in-house curricula, I think, is a fantastic idea. And not to mention, it is a great way to save money as well.
Yeah, it's just a matter of giving the teachers the time to actually create that curricular. And administrators, if you're listening, give the teachers time to build these things.
Yes, time and make some sacrifices.
Yeah, and
It's essential.
it's funny because I was helping another school out with their technology plan, and one of the things is have administrators create policies to have teachers do these things. And I look at that's the wrong approach. You don't want to create a policy and force them into this. You want to give them opportunity.
Encouragement, I think, is the word they're looking for.
Encouragement and opportunity, because they really need the opportunity to build these things. You can't just keep telling people, you have to do this, and not give them the opportunity to make this thing or encouragement to make this thing.
Absolutely,
and then
their heads will
hold them
spin.
accountable for when they fail. It's just it's a double-edged sword here.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know Burlington's had a little trouble with, there's a very, very big push to get more and more of the curriculum material online. Make everything online, in the cloud, more dynamic, more diverse, what have you, and really try to do away with the paper trail that schools have been plagued with for really as long as any of us can remember. And one of the things that has been an issue in that department, and that's actually something I have a fair amount of experience in, is really the fact that some teachers, really all teachers, need help in kind of conceptualizing what the online classroom looks like. It's not something completely, at least, that a lot of us have ever truly seen. And as such, sometimes that conceptualization melded with the technological know-how to actually make that dream a reality is something that needs to be more accessible. Because I feel the lack of conceptualization is what keeps a lot of the paper trail there.
Wow,
They're not ready to change.
That's very insightful, and I didn't even think about that. So I'm definitely taking that in. What do you guys have a learning management system in your school, or are you guys using Google Docs and Google Sites?
Learning management in what sense, BJ?
If you're in college, it's like Blackboard, it's Moodle, it's Haiku is another one that actually I'm having an interview next week with.
Oh, very nice. To answer your question succinctly, yes and no. Teachers are more or less using the tool that works for them. I know in particular the English department as well as the health and physical education departments seem to be a really big fan of Edmodo. They found that to be a really, really good tool for kind of keeping everything kind of fresh and everyone in the know of what's going on in their classes. And personally, I think the tool that's worked best thus far, some of our teachers, and once again, I'm going to note that it was primarily the younger generations, were creating either Blogger or WordPress sites. These sites, I mean, you need no knowledge of HTML or JavaScript whatsoever. And what's fantastic about them is they're inherently friendly to blogs, especially for K-12 education where you're meeting every day. I think blogs are a great way to really just deliver the content of what's going on in class. I think it's a great way to keep students informed. It's a great way for parents to keep in the loop. And I definitely think blogs are the way to go, especially for something that needs such frequent maintenance and updates so that everyone can stay in the know. Personally, I'm going to advocate Blogger sites. They're very pretty, they're very nice, and Google Sites actually in the same way does house an entire web page subtemplate for announcements and RSS feeds, which you can do either directly on the website or through Blogger. My choice would be the latter.
Well, the Google Weekly Podcast, the Ed Listen, and the Teaching Change are all Blogger sites. So I jumped in fully, and I love it. And one of the easiest things is if you're in it and you want to subscribe, hint, hint, if you go down there and become a member, and you just kind of I should open up. it's just like a one-click subscription, and now I get like an email every single time an update happens to my page, and it keeps a really nice way of keeping it organized.
And if I may just butt in one more time, one of the things actually that I did integrate for one of the websites I did for the school was precisely that, FeedBurner email management. It's as easy as clicking a button. I mean, they even give you the code for the little widget that you can embed on the web page. It's as easy as putting in your email address and clicking subscribe. And I mean, once again, it's a great way to just deliver the content, especially with the web becoming bigger and bigger every day. Content delivery is so important because I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of garbage out there.
Yeah. And again, if you want to see the example, go straight to the Google Weekly podcast and click
subscribe.
And subscribe via email. I'm going to finish up this section, and like I said, we're going to have a couple more shows. What has surprised you about this whole?
To be perfectly honest with you, BJ, I think what's oh my goodness, surprised me the most is the staff as well as the student body's willingness to adapt. I definitely expected a lot more resistance coming in, and I was very surprised to not meet that. The second thing, and really the biggest, which I know we kind of talked about before, the staff's general attitude. Like I said, teachers are not afraid to admit that they don't know, and that collaboration and that integration with technology has been more effective than I really would have ever imagined. And to be perfectly honest, there's a small part of me that really does wish this was implemented 3, 4, 5 years ago so that I could have had a little more experience with it, because to be perfectly honest with you, it's exciting. Going to school on a day-to-day basis can actually be exciting. I mean, granted, it's 7:30 in the morning, so not too exciting, but it can still be exciting. And I think that's something that school has lost over the past numerous decades. Yeah. So I've been really just so excited about everything going on there. This is the way to go.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't excited when I was going to high school to go in. I did like I worked for the theater department, and my senior year I had a laptop, and I started running the audio off of that, and I loved doing that.
Yes.
But yeah, school was not exciting for me, and I never expected that I'd be working back in education, let alone have a whole educational network around training and stuff like that. So I guess my experience was I didn't like school, and I wanted to change. So now I'm doing a whole training on how I think it should be.
Well, I mean, to kind of second that opinion there, I'm not the biggest traditional school person myself. My interests have always been much more suited to computers and to work. But I have to tell you that this initiative has made school really enjoyable for me. And I think it would have been interesting to see how you would have responded were you in my position as opposed to vice versa.
Yeah, I remember we got computers my senior year, and it was still up on a dial-up internet. I think we had 28K at that time.
Oh, lovely.
And I remember doing a search for Toshiba computers in the middle of the library, and I misspelled Toshiba. And even at that time, the internet was filled with inappropriate things, and when we did not have content filters either. So.
Oh boy. Boy.
Yeah, that was fun. In the middle, I'm like trying to hit the off button.
Well, that's one way to become a social pariah, BJ.
Oh, well, I've gotten better. And
I'm glad.
I'm going to plug the other two shows. Like I said, you wrote a book in here, and we're going to have another show with Julie Sharma. I'm not going to go. Her name is Julie, and she has done some really great things with Google Sites, and I'm going to have her up in a few episodes. Plus, we're going to have Haiku coming up soon. And I know, Jake, you're really big into Google Sites. So I'm either going to try and schedule you with Julie, or we're going to have another show just with
Absolutely.
You again. And I think it's a great contrast because Julie's work is really graphical and very, I think, well done and professionally done. And I think from your end of things, you're the very technical, so you understand the applets and how the code and integration all work to get it really functional.
Absolutely. And if anything is, in my personal opinion, where Julie really shines.
Yeah, so I'm either looking forward to getting both of you together or doing two separate shows. It all will depend on timing. And the other one I think we're going to
Very
do.
excited.
Yeah, and I think the other one I want to do with you is a device. I don't know, a device shout out, a device comparison. Just because, I mean, even for me, I don't have much experience with the iPad. I don't own one. I have fought tooth and nail with the iPod touches that we have at one of the other schools, just trying to get those to be an effective tool. It hasn't yet happened. And
My apologies.
yeah, you have experience with iPads, Android tablets. I'm assuming you understand at least the Chromebook and how that works. I don't know if you own one or not.
I don't own one, but I have had the opportunity to work with them extensively, so I definitely have some input there as well.
Yeah, I actually have one of our teachers who's kind of stole mine for the past 2 weeks. I asked to
I can
borrow it.
understand why. I really can.
I asked to borrow. I had to actually ask to borrow it back to try an application that I saw on the web that I wanted that could run tools. It wasn't yet ready for the Chromebook, but they kind of hinted that it was coming, and that was like spoon.com. It's actually kind of a cool website.
I might have to check it out.
And so I had to try it on my Chromebook just to see if it would work, and it popped up a little message that says, unfortunately right now we're Windows, but we love Mac OS and Linux, and we're working on bringing it to the devices. So I'm hoping that's going to bring it in to the Chrome store. So I have mine, and like I said, I have my teacher that I had to beg to borrow it just to try this out, and she's still using it. With that said, onto the app exploration part of the website. And oops, I didn't choose a marketplace app. So we're going to skip that one and that's the one part that you probably don't have access to. Or
Minimal.
So
The Chrome Web Store and the Android or Google Play Store, excuse me, are definitely more my area of expertise.
now let me ask, I know anything you add from the marketplace kind of shows up under more. So has your school implemented any third-party tools?
To be perfectly honest, not really. It's really just been the base Google Apps tools, especially with underclassmen and the fact that we do have some students and some administrators that aren't particularly technically literate. Um, we've really just primarily stressed the importance of the base Google Apps, but even still, I mean, they've clearly been immensely successful. Um, Personally, I mean, I've poked around in there from time to time. One that looked really, really cool, in my opinion, was actually called Smart Sheets. I don't know if you want to check that out, but it's a pretty cool cloud-based visual graphing and spreadsheet application. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I'm going to take a look at that, and I'll put that into the show notes so I can remember to do this. It's called Smart Sheets with my very loud keyboard. Okay. Now you had a couple ones from the Chrome Web Store. So this is ones for Google Chrome. You hit the plus button and you can go to the Chrome Store, and this is where you would find those. And you put these in here, so I'm going to let you talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to note, I believe Sheets can be found in the Chrome Web Store as well. Either way, it's just a great tool. But in particular, one Chrome web application that I did want to talk about would be Capture to Cloud. It's a very small little program, and it's a web application that gives the user the opportunity to kind of get an overview and manage all of their cloud-based storage solutions all in one place. And the main feature of Capture to Cloud, which I think has been fantastic, if you ever come across a LinkedIn file, a PDF, an HTML web page, or even just a picture that you really like and you'd like to hold on to in some way, storing information is literally as easy as right-clicking and selecting Capture to Cloud. Uh, and then from there on out, you're welcome to take all that information and port it into any cloud-based storage solution that you like. I think the reason I chose this app is just because personally I'm such an enthusiast of the cloud. Google's a very cloud-centric company, and really I feel as though it elevates the computing experience in a way that's just incredible. It definitely has saved my life on many, many occasions. And then just the other app that I did really, really want to talk about would probably be, oh my goodness, Handy Scanner. There's a free and a pro version. I believe the pro version runs for $4.99. And it really does exactly what the title suggests.
Yeah, and that's an Android. Before you go into that, that's an Android Play app.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, it's from the Google Play Store. And Handy Scanner is great. It comes with a built-in camera. And what you want to do with Handy Scanner, if you have a sheet of paper that you'd like to make into a PDF, an image file, really anything, it's as simple as taking a picture. Handy Scanner then auto crops it for you. It's a matter of just hitting OK, making sure the crop and the rotation is correct. And then you can add a whole host of effects to make the document more clear, more crisp, more concise. It takes incredible pictures, even on my phone. My phone has an 8-megapixel camera. The PDFs come out incredibly high quality. I believe somewhere in the vicinity of 150 by 150 DPI. Really not bad for a phone. And what's really, really fantastic is with OpenAuth, which is something I want to get into in the websites portion, it allows you to share anything you capture to any of your cloud services, such as Google Docs, Dropbox, Box, Evernote, etc. And once again, this is just another app that, to me, really accentuates the true power and versatility of the cloud. And that's really just why I love it. I just recently bought my first car. That was a great way to preserve all the documentation. God forbid should anything happen.
And well, congratulations and drive safe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that's going to finish up the show. We'll leave some of these other tools that you wrote down for the other episodes that we get together on. And
Absolutely.
Any closing words?
Really, more than anything, I think the one thing I'd like to say is obviously thank you so much to both you, BJ, and to our audience who's given me the great opportunity to talk about something I'm so passionate about. And more than anything, I really, really hope that my experience has helped someone out there. If you do ever have any questions or concerns that you think a student would be able to answer well for you, I really, really encourage the discussion. Please get in contact with me. I'd love for you to reach me through my Gmail account, jkinsman, KINSMAN 1986@gmail.com. I'm always looking to talk about this stuff, and if there's anything I can help with, I'd love to.
And for anybody's wondering, Jake is over 18. I made sure that he was over 18 before he came onto the show.
Yes, probably a good thing to mention.
And I think that's great. I will actually put your email address on the show notes so people can contact you, and I think this is great. And to be honest, I think it's even been more of an honor for me because I don't usually get the student perspective. I'm a teacher. I'm in my school. I'm considered a teacher. The students here consider me a teacher, and it's really cool to actually get that perspective of integration on a one-to-one, integration with iPad, integration with Google. So I am honored to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be listened to and respected in such a way.
Okay, well, we've been chatting for an hour, so I'm going to close up the show. And thank you very much for listening to the Google Weekly Podcast with your host, Bjorn Berendt and Jake Kinsman this week. You can follow the podcast and contribute by going to www.google-weekly.net. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. I also encourage you to get the conversation going around the show by posting comments or using the hashtag GWPodcast within your social network. Again, thank you for listening and never stop learning.
This is Torrance, and thank you for listening.